Hello students. Today in this session we'll be discussing about the first module of International Business Dynamics. Okay. Now firstly, this module, as I've already given you clarity regarding the contents of this module in my previous video regarding the discussion on the introductory session to IBD, right? So here this module is going to give you clarity regarding the basics of international business, right? The prelude, the start point of international business. Okay, so let us start with the session. Now, as of this module is concerned, the first and foremost question that comes to our mind is what is international business, right? So here, international business is nothing but any business transaction which is being carried out in different countries irrespective of the country of origin. So here we specifically refer to any transaction that is being carried out which is related to business activities which happens across national boundaries, and sometimes, or say majorly, it is something which happens beyond your immediate national boundaries as well, keeping in mind that countries today do not stay in isolation. Businesses do not have a control or restriction in terms of their movement to different markets, different customer segments, and different countries. Okay, so now international business can also be understood as the various transactions which are being carried out across international borders in order to satisfy the needs of two category of people. Now here, category number one includes that of companies who are going to sell the products and then accordingly get the sales receipts and sales proceeds on it, which is nothing but profit. That is the first benefit from the first person point of view. The second person is going to be the markets or customers in the markets who want items to fulfill their needs. They will buy such items, consume it, and accordingly they also will get satisfaction out of it, right? So here international business is basically carried out across borders of country, across countries, different countries, multinational countries, and the global markets, keeping in mind satisfaction of companies which participate in this trade plus the customers who want these new items from different markets and different producers to satisfy their individual needs. This is how we understand the concept of international business. As we all know, because all thanks to liberalization, privatization, and globalization, today we have free movement of physical goods, services like banking, finance, insurance, and many more, and also free movement of capital as well as free movement of resources. I mean, it can be physical resources like raw materials, machineries, equipments. It can be talent resources like human capital, human resources, skilled workforce, or it can also be certain other facilities like technology, transportation, communication, which have taken an edge and moved from one country to other countries where there is requirement or where there is scarcity of such services. Okay, this is to give you the meaning of international business. Now we go forward with the contents. Now here, as I've already described, we will be discussing about the evolution of international business, drivers and challenges of international business as compared to domestic business, national and organizational competitive advantage over the world, active players in multinational business, and the international environment of IB, which basically includes political, legal, technological, cultural, demographic, and economic environment. Continued with that, we will also be discussing about cross-cultural management, the levels of culture, and the various models that support international managers. Okay, let us start with the session, students. Firstly, we will be discussing about the evolution of international business. See, in some textbooks, they refer to this topic as history of international business also. Fine. Now, to describe the evolution of international business, we split up it into three distinct phases or stages. Okay. Phase number one is called as early stage of international business or international trade. Phase number two is called as pre-World War phase of international business or international trade. And the third phase is called as post-World War phase of international business or international trade. Now, in the third phase is further split into three different phases. That is phase one from 1940s to early 1960s, phase two from 1960s to 1970s, and phase three 1970s onwards. Okay. So first I'll give you the explanation for each and every phase starting from phase one. Okay. So in phase one, what basically happened was we could see that this phase went back to the ancient times. Okay. Where particularly Mesopotamian, Phoenician merchants, Greek merchants, these were the key players of the market in those days, where they carried out various trading activities in various countries. Okay. See, we could also see that in the Roman Empire, trade was facilitated by the construction of roads, development of banking system, and other such infrastructural facilities. So this is how they started transaction. This is how they ventured into different countries, and that was the only way in which they could conduct trade and other kind of business activities. See, after the Roman Empire, it was taken over by the Turks, which is nothing but Arabs, right? So Arabians basically what they took as an advantage was they started taking control over strategic ports. They took up overseas trade activities. They also tried to capture overseas trade markets and accordingly tried to facilitate trade in those countries and take advantage of the situation in those countries. That is how Roman Empire was taken over by the Arabian emperors. Okay. And then after that, we could also see that there was the discovery of America, which was done by Columbus, and then the arrival of Vasco da Gama in Calicut in 1498. All of these kind of critical incidents actually gave us a new direction to international business and trade, which means it made the routes for trade and trade related activities to become more well defined and clear cut, so that people could use that path in order to conduct, move, and then make sure trade activity could be taken place. And then we could also see that a lot of developments in the field of international business was taken place after these kind of invasions. Okay. Especially you see new trade instruments, payment methods, credit institutions, banking and infrastructure facilities, all of these things could take place after the discovery done by Columbus and Vasco da Gama. Okay. And finally we could also find out that later in the 16th century they also came up with international financial centers and other kind of financial facilities which was created in the financial market then, which could create a lot of physical transactions between parties to contract. Okay. So this is how we understand that a lot of changes have taken place in the early stage, that is phase one of international business. Then after we finish the phase one, we move on to the phase two, that is basically pre-World War stage or phase, right? So what happened here was basically we could see that there was the birth and establishment of industrial revolution in the economy and in the countries, which basically started up in the UK and then made it made the production of manufacturing goods convenient and cheaper through mechanization of the production process. I could say all thanks to industrial revolution, we had replaced, if not 100%, but a major scale of portion of production activity from manual labor to machine labor, so that the production process was much faster, it was much quick, we were able to produce in mass quantities and volumes, and thereby the concept of trade and facilitation of trade also become more easy. And later on, as a result of this mechanization, what happened was we were able to go for commercialization of activity, mass production or large scale production and consumption. Thereby, surplus goods were made available for export purposes also, which is also going to be a very good sign of improvement and economic stability of a particular country. And then we all, as a result of all of these things, like there was mechanization, there was industrial revolution, there was export activity. As a result of all of these things, we also could find out, we also could evidence that a lot of capital inflow or cash inflow used to happen within the economies. As a result, what basically happened was all the countries were able to find a market for themselves. There was this concept of surplus versus scarcity. In the sense, those countries who had surplus of a particular item, they gave these items to the other countries where there was deficit of such items. In return, they also took items which the other countries were surplus with respect to what these people were in scarce of. Okay, so all these kind of transactions and activities were seen in the second phase of evolution of international business. Then we go to the third phase, where it was a phase which was also described as post World War phase. Post means after, and second phase, pre means before. Okay, so after World War II, what basically happened was, World War, what happened was there was severe recession. Okay, there was severe recession which was dated in the year 1930s. Okay, and after the mid 1940s, international business again grew up in a very rapidly, which means there were new theories, there were new practitioners, there were new international trade participants who came into the process, and accordingly they facilitated more transactions to take place. As a result, there was IB or international business activity again sprung up on a larger scale. Now, after all of this, we could also see that in this phase, we basically try to split up the phase into three individual separate phases. That is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. The first is phase 1, that is between 1960s to 1970s. Now here, what basically happened was, there was a drive to increase integration among nations for the purpose of facilitation of trade and business, which means there was a harder need for all the countries to come close together and integrate themselves so that they were able to conduct all trade related activities in a much more smooth and easy manner. That is something which was evident in this particular phase. And then we go to the second phase, that is between 1960s to 1970s. So what basically happened here is, we could see that a lot of countries have started up with economic welfare of society, where economic welfare itself was given major importance and focus by all the countries. Okay, see, multilateral organizations like World Bank, IMF, GATT, all of these things were set up, which made the transactions even more easy. Okay, and one more point, students, I had to include, I should be telling you now at this juncture. Under phase 1, we could also see that a lot of companies had created global markets where the focus was on extraction of petroleum, extraction of raw materials, minerals, zinc, iron ore, coal, all of these basic requirements which were used by industries, especially these big industries where they use these items as inputs or raw materials to run the machines and run the other equipments. Okay, thereby the factories could conduct their operations of production activity in a much more smoothful way. Thereby they were in a position to come up with large scale production of goods and services. Fine. Then coming back to the last phase, that is phase 3, that is 1970s onwards, we could see that industrial development took place in many developing countries. Okay, like Southeast Asia, East Asia, like China, Korea, and then also countries like Latin America, that is Mexico, and so on. Okay, see, what we could see in phase 3 was, because of whatever had already taken place in phase 1 and phase 2, phase 3 was an extension, a further extension of the previous two phases. So what could we find in phase 3? Here we could see that many industrial plants that were initially based in developed countries were now getting relocated to new locations, which offered a very lesser cost of production, which is again going to be economic advantage of a situation, right? And consequently, what happened? Global trade is now all to do with major flows of merchandise which happens from developing countries to developed countries, which means because of this kind of a transition, developing countries are the countries which are actually providing you all of these raw materials, all of these food, finished products, and many more, which are being used or subscribed or bought by the developed countries, so that there is something called as balancing the economies between that of developing countries and developed countries. So this is how we try to understand the three different phases under phase 3, and also phase 1 and phase 2 of the evolution of international business. Now, apart from this, I will also be telling you that there were a lot of major incidents and events which occurred in this phase of evolution of international business. Let us also discuss about that in general. Firstly, if you see, the 19th century, broader concept of integration of economies and societies took place. Later on, in 1870s, we began the first phase of globalization, where we started considering all markets to be combined and made into one big market called as the global market. And in the year 1919, World War II took place, where it was the end of the first phase of globalization, and Industrial Revolution, UK, and also Germany and the USA, which resulted in sharp increase in the trade with import and export by colonial empires. 1913, the GDP was about 22.1. After 1930, increased trade barriers to protect domestic production, and as a result of that, in 1930s, there was a declined trade ratio, which has resulted from, which was seen at 9.1 as compared to 22.1 in the prior. And then after 1930s, world nations felt the need for international cooperation in global trade and balance of payment affairs. So all the countries had signed a lot of treaties and agreements had come up. As a result, people started becoming more thinking about the overall benefit, the benefit of the mass of countries, rather than what benefit can come for them as a single country. Okay. As a result, in order to facilitate these kind of trade transactions, they had established IMF and IBRD, that is also termed as World Bank. And in 1947, around 23 countries conducted negotiations in order to prevent the protectionist policies and to revive the economies from recession, aiming at establishment of World Trade Organization, which is nothing but this is also like a measure which countries took to in order to safeguard the trade transactions and also to minimize any kind of problems or conflicts that could occur between the various trading partners and trading countries in any kind of trade transaction. So there was an urgent need or an hard-earned need to establish WTO, which actually sprung up in this particular year. And then again in the same year, they had also established GATT, that was General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, where these agreements came up with certain rules and restrictions which are governing and regulating the trade policies, trade activities, and trade networks. Also, the tariff rates that has to be charged. Tariff rate is nothing but the tax rates chargeable on various kinds of movements of physical products and other services which are going to facilitate international or cross-border trade transactions. And further, we could also see that in 1980s, efforts to convert GATT into WTO, and 1st Jan 1995, GATT was replaced by WTO, which was a very good initiative, which could actually make things more, more easy and more comfortable for all the trading partners. And then there was something called as trade liberalization. Here, the concept of liberalization, that is free movement of trade, free movement of people, resources, capital, technology, and all of these elements did take place in this concept of trade liberalization, which actually gave even more liberty for all the trading partners to take up trade activities across the globe. And from 1990 to 2000, the term international business has emerged from the term international marketing. So till now, if you see, it was all related to trade, product, service, exchange, transaction, money, and so on. But now we officially constitutionalize the term IB in place of IM. Okay. Now here there are two phases of evolution in the term international business. Number one, international trade to international marketing, and international marketing to international business. So this is the scale, this is the flow. Initially, it was termed as international trade, then it assumed the shape of international market or say marketing, and then now it is termed as international business. After 1990s, there was rapid internationalization and globalization, again for the benefit of all the participating countries. And today we see that we are interpreting the pestin factors of international trade environment more clearly, which means we are talking about the extraneous or external factors, which is nothing but pestin, that is political, economic, social, technological, and other institutional and natural factors. All of these factors are actually going to give us even more clarity regarding to what extent how these factors can have an impact on the trade relations that takes place between different parties across the globe in a global kind of a setup. Now this is what, I mean, these are the various aspects that we include, which were evidenced and seen in the evolution of international business. Fine. So by this, we are done with the evolution of international business. The next topic of discussion would be drivers of international business as compared to domestic business. See, it is nothing but what factors pushed you to take up international business. Okay. So this international business, as we know, there are a lot of benefits for participating countries, isn't it? So drivers of international business as compared to domestic business, nothing but what was the reason for people to go international or to participate in international business trade transactions as compared to domestic business or domestic trade transactions. Okay. So domestic means you're going to focus only on in one country where you have your place or where you have your stay as a brand or as a company. That is basically home country business transactions, which is limited in terms of political and geographical boundaries. Whereas international business and international business transactions do not have a restriction of geographical boundaries or political boundaries. You can have transaction or conduct transaction with anybody across the globe. Okay. So let us see what are the various factors or drivers which made international business to be accepted in due comparison to domestic businesses. Firstly, higher rates of profit. As you can see here, the number one, higher rate of profit. Yes, when compared to domestic business or home country business, when you could start selling and making money by participating in international business, the amount of money that you get as profits or sales proceeds is going to be much higher, which means we are also trying to take into consideration the valuation of INR, Indian National Rupee, with that of foreign currency. So there is this differences in the value of every rupee with every currency, isn't it? So that itself is going to become a scale of very good profit margin for countries which are participating in international business. So that becomes the first reason. The second driver is going to be expanding the production capacities. Definitely, yes. See, companies have become more smart where they have made sure, because they are going to reach out to the foreign countries and overseas markets, definitely demand is going to be very dynamic in nature, which means demand goes up, demand comes down. But see, always you must have the ability to stretch your capacity to produce more and keep the stock of goods ready, so that whenever there is demand in the market, you will be able to cater to the requirements of the customers or clients across the globe. Hence, we talk about expanding production capacities because of the benefits of the particular country. We were, and the demand that is there in different countries, we were able to expand our production capacity. It can be because of the technology that the technology which has been taken from different countries in terms of coming up with new automated machines, automation for production of products and services. Thereby you will be in a position to meet all the demands coming from different countries and match your supply to that, and so on. So the third driver is going to be limited home market. Yes, see, we cannot expect always the demand in the home country to be massive, right? Sometimes when you have other people, like I mean to say your competitors, who enter into the market and they come with some variations, definitely customers prefer their items compared to our items, isn't it? That is going to be a very obvious phenomenon that takes place in the market. So what are we trying to say here is, when you don't have more number of takers or buyers for your product in the home country, because of that, there is a hard-earned need for you to expand your horizons and move or expand your business to different countries, so that you will be able to sell and make money out of the transaction. And the next is political stability versus instability. Definitely yes. In a country like India, see, we know that sometimes political environment is stable, sometimes political environment is not so stable. It can be because of controllable factors or uncontrollable factors, isn't it? So when these kind of changes take place, automatically the price fixation, the fixing up of tax rates, revenue policy, all of these things are going to get changed. The percentages, I mean, are going to get changed, right? So definitely the stability element is also going to be one factor which is going to initiate you or drive you to participate in international business. How do we justify this point? Simple. We go and conduct trade transactions with those countries or in those countries where the political environment is considerably stable, as compared to those countries where the stability is not so defined or not so effective. That is how we justify this point. And then we go to the next driver, that is availability of technology and competent human resources. Yes, see, we know that in a country like India, we have abundant supply of cheap labor, isn't it? That is what we would have discussed in economics also. But the point is, it's not about the quantity that matters here. It is all about the quality. Okay. See, when I'm talking about availability of technology, yes, we have good brains in our country. We have very smart people in our country. But do we have the facility which can be used in order to convert those ideas which are in brains into real life applications? That is point number one. Okay. So when you don't have a lot of funding facility available, when you don't have a lot of government support, then whatever innovative ideas you have in terms of coming up with the latest technology and technological supports, that will just remain in your brain as an idea itself. It will not be more operational. Hence, when you don't have good amount of technology, what we do, we go in search of those countries where there is the technological advantage, and thereby we are going to borrow such technologies from them. Hence, we go to international business. Second is competent human resource. We do not want people in numbers. We want people in terms of the skill set and the exposure that they have, right? See, if you see, there is one more subject. I'm specifically referring to those students who have taken HR as their specialization in your fourth semester. You will be studying about one subject called as talent and knowledge management, isn't it? So in that subject, I would have already explained you about talent, right? So what is talent? Talent is nothing but it is also a type of human resource or an employee who does much more beyond than what is expected from him by the company or his immediate higher ups. So it is such people who actually matter for companies, or it is such people who will actually take the company to greater heights, right? So that is what we mean to say here. If we are not able to find good quality people or talented human resources, then we need to shift our base from the home country transaction to the host countries, right? And then high cost of transportation. Yes, because of the cost burden, companies do not want to take up or do not want to participate in certain countries where the cost of transportation is very, very high. See, I can give you one more illustration. Let us say that I have my business here, okay, and I have the demand for my products in a foreign country. Let me say USA, okay. I'm in India. Demand comes from USA. Now, if I have to reach out my product from India to USA, I definitely need to find a mode through which I'll be able to shift the item from this place to that place, which is nothing but we're talking about transportation and logistics here. Now, instead of me transporting the item from India to USA, if I have my stay in that country, definitely this time and this money that I spent for transportation as an expenditure is going to come down on a massive scale, which is nothing but cost savings for me, which is nothing but that amount of money which I save, I can use it and deploy on some other productive purposes, isn't it? Hence, that also becomes one driver for international business. Next is availability of raw materials. Let me say one more thing. Availability of raw material does not mean only that you must get raw material at cheaper prices or cheaper costs. No, that is not what we are trying to exactly mean. Of course, that matters. Apart from that, the raw material should be of good quality. The source of supply or the supplier who's giving you the supply of these raw materials should have very good terms and conditions for trade transaction. He should give you value added services. He should give you some trade discount facility and trade credit facilities also. And thirdly, this raw material should be something, should be in a place which is nearby to the place where I have my factory outlet, so that I don't waste time and waste time and money in transportation and many more other product carrying or goods carrying activities and functions. Okay, hence that becomes a factor. And the next is liberalization, globalization. Yes. Now these two things are basically like an element which is going to give me an advantage. It is like trying to clear my way, my path, so that I can effectively go and stay in a foreign country and get more revenue as compared to what I get here in the home country. So these things are also going to help me push my focus from domestic market or domestic business to foreign country and overseas market. And the next topic or next point would be, that is next driver would be growth in market share. Yes, the market share that I have. Market share is nothing but what is the total share of market or customers that your brand or company or business has. Okay. So if I'm just focusing only in the Indian market, the percentage of share of customers or market is going to be much lesser as compared to a company which has its customer share or market share present and spread in different markets across the globe, isn't it? So definitely, in order to grow and broaden my market share, I will go global. I will go international, go to international markets. Okay. And finally, we know that higher rates of profits, which is nothing but, we know that we need to make sure that in order to make good amount of money, you need to expel, you need to expand, you need to go and find out an opportunity where you can convert these things into money, right? So these have been the various factors or drivers which pushes you or forces you to voluntarily take up international business trade transactions and practices as compared to domestic business activities. Okay. The next thing, again, we have some more points under the drivers. Number one, it increases the standard, the living standards of people. It's like, you know what, living standard can be understood based on the income, based on the expenditure pattern of people, the willingness to spend and invest on various assets, and also what kind of lifestyle people lead. All these four factors gives us a clarity regarding the living standards. When you spend and buy better good quality products and services, automatically it has a reflection effect on your personality and your lifestyle. Thereby your standard of living also increases. Number one, this is from the customer point of view. What is it from the seller or manufacturer point of view? Simple. When you're able to sell a product for, let me say for example, 20 rupees in Indian market, whereas the same product when converted to foreign currency, US dollars, you will be able to sell it at 40 rupees per product. I'm just giving it to you in the form of INR and not dollars. Okay. So you can see, right, that there is a difference. Every rupee has a valuation in correspondence to every dollar, right? So what are we trying to do here is, as a seller or as a, as a marketer, when you go to these foreign countries and sell, the capacity or the prosperity and the buying and spending pattern in those countries is different compared to what happens with people in our country, in the Indian continent. Hence, when you sell it at a better price, you're getting more margin, you're getting more profits, thereby your individual standard of living as a seller also improves. So high living standards is promised for both the parties, seller as well as the buyer. The next point is increase socio-economic welfare. Obviously, yes, we are not only looking at making profits, but we are also thinking about how can we invest this money for productive purposes. That is, apart from profit maximization, profit optimization also should be taken care of. So we are going to deploy, in the sense, how much ever money you make or earn as profit, out of the total money that we get, a certain percentage of that money will be given for social welfare projects, corporate social responsibility activities, and other communal well-being activities or community well-being activities. Thereby, you will be able to make sure that there is a balance between society and its expectations from your company, and also economic balances can be created where you can break down this concept of rich is getting more richer and poor is getting more poorer to some extent, right? And next is we have wider market. Wider market means it's not one or two market. It is n number of markets, which means you have so much of demand and so much of supply that you need to give. Thereby, you are actually expanding your capacity and bringing in more infusement of foreign capital or foreign currency into your country and your profits. Okay. And then reduced effects of business cycle. Yes. See, business cycle or trade cycle basically constitutes of certain phases, right? Like introduction, maturity, boom, saturation, decline, recession, and so on. So now, according to each of these phases, if you are focusing only on one particular product or one particular brand or one particular country, you will always have a problem. If you diversify and expand your operations to different countries, probably in one country, the business cycle or stage will be in recession stage. Example. In other country, it will be in a boom stage. In other country, it will be in an introduction stage. In other country, it will be in a decline stage. So accordingly, you will be able to balance the loss which you create or which occurs in one country or in one market as an effect of what happens in that market with that of the other markets where there is a prosperity. So that balancing act can be done using the fourth point. Okay. Reduced risk, the same point. Reduced risk is nothing but different markets, different countries have different set of rules and regulations, marketing terms and conditions, and different practices that takes place in a global context. Okay. See, protection or safeguarding your interest, your customers' interest, and all of these things becomes the prime priority of every business. Okay. Reduced risk is nothing but your investment risk, your financial risk, and your other risk associated with the sale of items can be reduced. How? Because what we do here, when it is only one country in the domestic market, we are always, I mean, it's very sure that business cannot be static. Today, I am in the market and my product is doing very well. Tomorrow, some other fellow will get into the market and he will overtake my business and my sales, and people will start buying his products over my products. So the risk of sustainability or the risk of stay and the risk of profitability in one country is much limited. Hence, when you try to maximize or expand your operations, that risk can be reduced or the intensity of the risk can be reduced, because in one market you get profit, one market you get loss. One market you get very good sales, one market you get only average sales. So that way you can actually balance it off so that you don't actually feel the pressure and pain of it, right? And the next is large scale economies. Yes, we are going to get into such countries where there is very good economic prosperity, which will promise us that we'll be able to reap maximum profits and benefits when we become trading partners in those countries. And the next is we will have a very good potential to tap the untapped markets, which means there are some markets where probably the kind of product that we are selling in our country is not at all to be seen in those countries. So what will happen is we can go to those countries, find, place our product there and see that customers start buying more and demanding more. Thereby, you are actually trying to tap the potential and tap the potential of that market and convert that into your business opportunity by offering very good products to the customers, which is not at all to be seen in those markets. Okay. And then it provides the opportunity to domestic business. Obviously, yes, it is like finding the best opportunity to expand your horizons or expand your wings. Apart from focusing on just one or two markets or just the domestic market, when you go and participate in the international market, it provides you a very good opportunity to make good amount of profit. It helps you in creation of a new market or a segment for you there. Your market share will expand, your profit scale will increase, your sales revenue will again double up and multiply. So these are all the ways in which it provides an opportunity for the domestic businesses to venture into the foreign countries and take the benefits from those countries, okay, or reap the benefits from such countries. The next is division of labor and specialization. Yes, division of labor and specialization is nothing but instead of me doing it or instead of few people doing it, I will give specific tasks to different people who are experts in those respective tasks, so that your decisions will be made much faster and quicker. Number two, you will be able to you will be able to minimize the risk involved in making the wrong choice or wrong decision. Number three, you will be able to minimize the cost sometimes, because you're not overburdening yourself with all the decisions, and the time taken to implement the decisions made also is much quicker. Hence, division of labor and specialization is going to be one factor which is going to help you to drive your business towards international businesses. Okay. Next is economic growth of world at large. Yes, it is all about your GDP and NDP. It is all about the overall economy's prospects in terms of how much sales and how much profits has that country made. Not only in one country, but across the globe in different countries. That is also going to be one more factor which is going to have an impact on your entry to such markets and such areas. The next is optimum and proper utilization of world resources, which is nothing but it can be anything. It can be technology, it can be money, it can be people or talent resources, it can be infrastructure. When you try to venture out to different countries, what basically happens is you will be able to make the optimum judicious and genuine use of whatever resources is available there, so that you don't waste up or cough up on a lot of money for other activities and other areas which may not probably give you good results in the long run. And the next point is cultural transformation. This is going to be a very sensitive, at the same time very, very important point. Cultural transformation is nothing but sometimes you cannot stick to your own roots and say, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to be. You, in order to change, in order to find changes in your business, you have to incorporate change at a very internal and a personal level, which is nothing but you must have the ability to trust and try and take new things and observe new things, learn and accordingly change new things, change to the new things according to what's changing in the environment. So cultural transformation is you need to find out the cultural similarities and dissimilarities between people of different country. Accordingly, you will have to keep yourself very open and try and test these kind of changes in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of food, in terms of lifestyle changes. Thereby, there is an option of you finding betterment for yourself tomorrow. It is not just making money or making profits. It's all about how you will be able to change and transform yourself from what you are today to what you expect to be tomorrow. And that is possible only when you keep your minds open and keep that exposure open, and make sure that you provide that avenue for new changes to take place and accept those changes. And that is how you'll be able to make you'll be able to make very good returns and very good presence in the foreign countries and foreign markets. Okay, now by this we have discussed about the various drivers of IB. Now the next topic is going to be challenges of international business as compared to domestic business. First thing is international company structure, which means the company's organization structure which takes place in foreign countries are much more amenable and flexible to incorporate the various challenges, risks and requirements of different markets. Now this itself can be a challenge, because sometimes when you're talking about international business, you need to always know what is the structure practice there, and accordingly you will have to get ready with all the resource requirements in order to fit that particular structure and its implementation. Now that becomes very big challenge, because you cannot practically work on all types of organization structure or company structure, because every structure has its own limitations and disadvantages, right? So that risk assessment of every single company structure which is on the international frontiers becomes a very big challenge. And accordingly, to incorporate these changes and make sure that things happen on a better scale again becomes a very big challenge. The second is foreign laws and regulations. Yes, when you are trying to enter into a foreign country to start and to start your business, to sustain there as a very good brand, it is a very difficult task, because every single country has its own laws. We call it as land laws, which means every country has its own set of rules and regulations, codes of conduct, culture, policy, and many more things, which is going to be very difficult. Why? Because number one, you must know everything and anything which comes within the legal framework of those countries. especially in terms of commercial practice and so on. So secondly, you should have the ability to relate to the terms and conditions of such countries. If not, you will not be able to survive and sustain there for a long time. Third challenge is international accounting. Yes, international accounting is nothing but the accounting standards, accounting practices, being accountable for whatever transaction takes place sometimes becomes difficult because of the differences in these standards and procedures and formats and proformas. Okay. Next, cost calculation, global pricing strategy. Yes, see, when it is domestic country, it is only few selected borders, few selected areas. But when we are talking about foreign countries or international markets, definitely the cost calculation or cost ascertainment can multiply to many folds. That is a challenge, especially for those companies who do not have adequate funds which can be used to overcome these cost burdens. Secondly, we must also understand that you must go with something called as a global pricing strategy, which should be a uniform pricing strategy, which should be in picture in almost all the countries in a uniform way wherever you have your presence there. Okay. And then universal payment methods, which is nothing but how do we collect money from the clients or customers? Is there one single method of payment through which transactions can be settled and cleared, or do we have different avenues through which you'll be able to collect the amount due from the clients and customers? Again, there is a challenge because you need to know what is the foreign or overseas market payment portals, what are the payment instruments used, how do transaction take place, how much time does it take for a debtor to give back the money to you as a creditor. Okay, all of these things, especially when you're talking about trade transactions, credit trade transactions, all of these things have to be taken into consideration, which can actually make it more riskier. The next is currency rates. Obviously, yes, currency rate fluctuation, valuation, devaluation, all of these things will actually happen rapidly according to the economic conditions of different countries, because it's not one country, it's many countries, right? Choosing the right global shipment methods, yes, because you cannot say that different countries have different modes, isn't it? So accordingly, you will have to find the best mode which is going to be making your delivery much faster and quick. Number one. Number two, it should also be a cost saving element, because you cannot shell out more money just on delivery and movement of items. You have other area of cost also, right? So all these things also have to be taken into consideration, which again becomes a major challenge because you have to deploy a lot of people to work on these lines, and with the expertise of these people, they give you the right guidance to decide what kind of method or shipment method should be used, right, to save cost and also not compromise on the delivery schedules and so on. So then communication difficulties and cultural differences is something very, very organic, because different countries have different language, different lifestyle, different dress and food habits, different aspects to it. So understanding all of these things and accordingly relating to them becomes a challenge, especially when it is from two or more different countries which comes together simultaneously. It becomes a very big challenge. Okay. And then political risk is nothing but it is to do with the political stability and instability in different countries, which is accordingly going to implement different acts and tax rates and tariff policy, which is again going to have an adverse impact on the trade transactions. Okay. Supply chain complexity and risk of labor exploitation. This is very, very obvious. Like for example, supply chain is a multifold aspect. It has a lot of elements which is connected to one particular supply chain. So every single component has to be understood well, right? See, a supply chain starts from the place where you get your raw materials, that is source of supply of raw material, and then it comes to the factory, and then you produce it, you pack it, you label it, you seal it, and then it goes to the market. There you have distributors like wholesalers, retailers, or you have some foreign agents and commission merchants who are taking care of these transactions, and accordingly only then last it goes to the ultimate buyer or user like you and me. So all of these things have, it involves a lot of people, a lot of patience, a lot of complexities. You need to know all of these things, without which you will not be able to find success, right? So here, in between, anywhere you might have a difficulty, you might get stuck. In that time, how do you overcome it again becomes a challenge, right? And risk of labor exploitation is nothing but, we know that in today's world, we know people are being exploited a lot. Okay. It's like you need to pay people genuinely for what they give you or render as a service component to you. Number one, there shouldn't be any discrimination in wage pay, in payment of wages between men and women folk. Number three, you should not have, you should not practice child labor. Like, see, there are some parts of the country where they use these children to, they exploit children to do work like packing of cigarettes, and then to get the cocoa seeds. We all have chocolates, right? We love to have chocolates, but see, a chocolate cannot be done unless and until you have the raw material called as cocoa. And to get this cocoa, fine quality cocoa, you need to go to the interiors of forests where you have this trees, where you have that cocoa. You need to break open that shell and then take that cocoa seeds, and then accordingly that is being processed and made into chocolates. There are some small children who are being exploited for that, and they go to the forest, the forest interiors where there is a lot of wild animals, and with all of these risks they go there, and then they bring it, and in return they're being paid very less amount. Number one, child labor is a punishable offense. Number two, it is inhuman act to use such children to exploit them. And number three, you are actually paying them, these people actually pay them much lesser than what they should be given for that service that these people render. So all of these things are going to be very big challenges. This is going to be, apart from a challenge, it is also a pressing issue today in the economy at large, in the country perspective as large, right? And then we also talk about worldwide environmental issues. We are talking about natural calamities. We are talking about viruses, and we know what's happening now, isn't it? So all of these things are going to have an impact. It can also include the factors like external factors like political, economic, natural, many more aspects which can have an impact on your transactions. So all of these things accumulate and make, take shape of the challenges of international business. Now these are all the points. Now let me tell you, students, it is not that you need to focus only on these many points. You can also add upon as many points as you study and prepare, and that also can be used for your exams as well. Okay, so this is just to give you the major points which have to be included, but you are given the platform to come up with as many points as you can also contribute, and accordingly frame your answers well. Okay, so students, for today's class I'll stop it here because I've explained almost a lot of topics today. Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. From the next class onwards, I'll be starting up with the remaining topics of module 1. So only selected topics of module 1 is discussed in this video. Okay, I'll quickly revise what we have done for today's class, for today's session. So we have started the session from module 1, that is International Business Dynamics Introduction, where I've given you the importance, the clarity about the meaning and definition of the concept of international business. And then we've also, I've also given you the contents, the list of contents that we'll be discussing in this module. And here, under that, we have discussed certain very important topics. Number one, we have discussed about evolution of international business and the major incidents and events which have taken in the evolution of international business. And then we have also discussed the drivers of international business. We have two separate slides for this. This is the one, and also this one. And then we have also discussed the various challenges of international business as compared to domestic business. So we will stop it here. The next video will be about the remaining topics which are yet to be covered from module 1. Okay, so students, start studying. If you have any doubts, you can let me know. Fine, students, take care. Thank you, students.